cities like Portland, San Francisco, Los Angeles, like are talked about a lot.
Yeah.
And it's easy to kind of get caught up in the like, oh my gosh, like, this is so crazy. But then like take a step back, it's like these are actually people's lives
Yeah.
that are being people's lives and people's communities and people's cities that they love, they're invested in, and people who are struggling with what I think most people can agree with is like a basic right that everyone should have housing, turned into kind of these weird media talking points.
Totally.
And I think there's a possibility here that people get so lost in the news and like the storyline that they just get disconnected from people don't have homes, and they don't have homes for like totally understandable reasons.
I mean, exactly. Like, I mean, we know when the eviction moratoriums ended here post COVID, like people, evictions went up, right? Like, I think
Yeah.
because that was what was keeping some people housed. I think, I mean, the cost of housing, I mean, you and I, I'm sure, know people who are a paycheck or two away from not having to be able to paying their rent, right?
Yeah.
I think that that's just a part of where we're at right now,
Mhm.
especially in the US around the lack of kind of a livable wage and kind of making general life affordable to people.
Mhm.
I mean, I recently saw a meme that was like, "Don't go outside. Outside costs $300," and it's like, yes, it's like, and it's just like, I mean, that's true for you and I. Like, it's like
Yeah,
I'm like,
totally,
if
man.
we leave the house, I talked about this with my wife recently. I was like, if we leave the house, the coffee shop plus a piece of toast is going to be $40, $40 plus a tip, and then we're going to end up going to the park and the kids are going to want something and that's going to add up and we're going to come home 200. What if we just stay here? And like, what if we
Totally.
just don't leave the house? And it's like, you can't just leave that. And that's true for, like folks who are employed and well enough off and relatively privileged to be able to kind of do that. And so when you extrapolate like the cost of daily life for people, it's pretty brutal out there with the inflation. I think in the Bay Area was up to 8%. I think it's down to five something.
Yeah.
And so that comes up in like even my contract negotiations with counties, right? Is like, how much can we push on this cost because it's costing us more to do the work.
Yeah.
If we're running like a residential program, oh, food costs are up, cleaning product costs are up. Like we need to actually be reimbursed for that, right? So
Yeah, housing work I think is fascinating
yeah,
and tough. It's interesting that you said you came from like a different discipline
yeah,
from it. Early in my career, as you know, I worked with at-risk youth and street gangs, and most of my work had been with it'd been mental health and addiction work, and really with an at-risk population. And it had this kind of like you're always on the go, you're going these
yeah,
different places, and of course, I would do what you did. I would make referrals out for housing. So like my thinking about housing was just like totally not there.
yeah,
I did 2 years stint in housing in low barrier and zero barrier housing, and it's the hardest job I've ever had in my entire life.
yeah,
I have never experienced something that I took home to that level where I would just like go home and I would cry, and it's not that I didn't hear hard things before, but that idea of like how hard it can be to get someone a home and to
yeah.
help them stay in a home. I don't know if the average person or even people in the field necessarily understand the true challenge of housing. So like what could you unpack for us there for the listeners?
I mean, I think it's just a scale issue, right? Like when we talk about the scale of the problem and the scale of solutions, it isn't just to housing, it's like to behavioral health, it's around equity and income. It's like our solutions are often meso level. So it's like this and the problem is this, right? So we need to actually scale solutions and problems together to kind of to to make impact. Because, you know, we've seen, you read a study that says like, oh, this pilot was able to do this much with this, and that's the end of it. It's like, well, that pilot impacted, whatever percentage of the population, right? 5% of that population or 100 people create like a universal basic income kind of pilot will give certain subset of people an extra this amount of money and watch what happens, right? But then it's like, okay, so where's the impetus to put that on like a mass scale to make a bigger impact, right? And I think that's true in housing. It's true in a lot of our work is, the solutions proposed will impact these subsects or some portion of the population, but like where's the push to actually put these things on a scale that would actually impact the greater problem and actually deal with give us a solution. And that gets into a realm I'm never involved in, which is the political side of things, right? Like I'm not a lobbyist. I'm not running for office.
Yeah.
I can make that promise to you. So it's like, but I mean, I can come back and say like, okay, well, I mean, when I have a conversation with somebody about a program we might run, I say, right, so with this much money, I'll write a budget. And, at this point, a lot of my work is working with counties and localities to talk about what we can do in a program or with a certain amount of money. So I'll say, okay, so X dollars, here's what I can provide you.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is what you get for X dollars. This is just like going to the grocery store. If you have $100, you can buy 3 things, right? Because that's the cost of because that's what really is going to cost, or the Whole Foods or whatever is going to cost you, right?
Yeah.
So it's like for this much money, this is what you can afford. And if you want these add-ons, if you want to throw in a block of whatever from a specialty thing, those cost money because I have to come up with a way to do them. So I have to pass, we have to work together in coming up with a way to actually budget for that. And so I think it's the same thing. It's creating programs and kind of investing in the things that we need to the scale we need them,
Yeah.
as opposed to on these micro levels.
Well, let's get into what the organization
Yeah.
does. So, like, what are if you think about the population that you engage with, and I know there's like subsets within the
Yeah.
population, but who do you work with and how do you help them?
We are in a few counties, all the way
Mm.
down as far as Salinas, which is kind of Monterey County area,
Mm.
and all the way up to Sacramento County. So, I mean, I'll speak kind of more generally about my region, but this kind of more or less applies to all of our areas. So, we have, again, like behavioral health and housing contracts. There's some overlap. There's like a program that we actually run that is housing specifically to people who are higher level behavioral health consumers. So folks who have high level mental health needs who need housing support.
Mhm.
So we've got housing and behavioral health contracts.
Mhm.
Those contracts will be, for example, we opened 2 in Sacramento County, soon 3 wellness drop-in centers. Come in, we'll get you connected to resources, you can be here as long as you need. There's snacks, there's juice, there's coffee, there's groups that are just drop in and out. Very low barrier, no barrier, right? So we try to be no barrier about things.
Mm.
Um, and on the housing and side of things, generally by referral. There's a system that we use called HMIS, which is the Homeless Management Information System. That's right. Which folks are referred to us through, and that's based on a variety of factors that the county determines and kind of says like this is the order we want you to go in.
Mhm.
So for those folks, we might have the ability to do some subsidy to their rent,
Mhm.
kind of do some do some homeless prevention work,
Mhm.
right? So their risk of losing their housing. So we can go, what do you need? Oh, an extra 100 a month. Like, well, that's better than you becoming, if we can give you that, then maybe you don't end up on the streets and we have a bigger problem because the downstream effects of that are so much worse, right? We know people who end up uh, outside, don't have as much access to healthcare, infection risk, everything kind of goes up, right? The more you are away from things. So the more we can give you stability, the better, right? So we can try to intervene upstream rather than downstream.
Yeah.
Um, and so we have those kind of 2 facets. On the behavioral health side, we contract with the county to run what are called specialty mental health services, which is folks who have a higher behavioral health need and really gear their recovery work and support them in their journey. So kind of honored to do the work because come to this with, I worked previously in county, worked in emergency, psychiatric emergency. I worked in a little bit in medical emergency.
Mhm.
And so and then I worked in a for-profit private system for a while.
Mhm.
And I came back to this community-based kind of organization, uh, which has 70 years of kind of doing this work, which I'm really excited about being a part of.